Voo noturno do dia 29 de setembro de 1959. A maioria dos passageiros viajando de Houston a Dallas dormia embalada pelo leve zunido das 4 turbinas a hélice. A nave estava a 4.500 metros de altitude e havia 34 pessoas a bordo.
There would have been a kind of happening, and then there would have been creaking because the airframe would have started to flex more than it usually flexed. And then things would have gone rapidly from bad to worse, and at a certain point there would have been an extremely loud explosive sound. The lights would have gone out, and then for the next probably 30 seconds they would have been tumbling through darkness, and then that would have been the end.
Os 34 passageiros morreram. A nave era um Electra Lockheed L-188 e ninguém soube qual o motivo da pane. Os destroços foram encontrados a 5 quilômetros de Buffalo, Texas, e se espalhavam em um raio de 6 quilômetros.
Witnesses on the ground saw a flash of light, which they described as looking like a shooting star. It was probably fuel ignited as the wing came off, because fuel is stored in the wings. And they also heard a kind of shrieking sound. And accident investigators later tried out various sounds on witnesses, and the one they identified as most resembling what they had heard was the sound of a runaway propeller, that is, a propeller speeding up out of control.
Através dos destroços, os investigadores concluíram que a asa esquerda do Electra soltou-se durante o voo. Eles também examinaram os arranhões no revestimento de uma das turbinas e descobriram que uma das hélices fora de alguma forma deslocada.
The investigators found scratches on the outboard left engine nacelle that indicated that the nacelle had waved around like this through an angle of about 35 degrees.
Alguns meses depois, outro trágico acidente envolveu um Electra.
This time it was a flight, Northwest Orient flight in Indiana, 63 passengers aboard. And this time, rather than the left wing, the right wing failed. But otherwise, it was a carbon copy. The same signatures on the engine nacelle, the scratch marks from which investigators were able to figure out what movements had occurred, and the same failure of the wing structure.
Com a ajuda dos desenhos originais do Electra, os investigadores reconstruíram o corpo da aeronave. As asas foram montadas com tela de arame e o objetivo era descobrir a causa dos 2 acidentes.
After the second crash, what had previously possibly passed as a freak event had turned into a trend. Things kind of rose to the intense, near panic level after the second crash. And it was at that point that, because all of the normal theoretical avenues had been exhausted, that people began to look at, I guess, possibilities that hadn't even been considered.
Os engenheiros da Lockheed suspeitavam que as naves passaram por um flutter, um tipo de oscilação em pleno voo.
Because it was suspected to be flutter, NASA had a team of flutter experts, flutter engineers, that were called upon by the FAA to meet with Lockheed and discuss this problem.
O flutter é um fenômeno conhecido na aviação que ocorre porque a nave precisa ser leve e robusta ao mesmo tempo e, portanto, flexível. Trata-se de uma vibração que ganha intensidade a grandes velocidades e acrescenta sua própria energia à estrutura. Seus efeitos são estudados em túneis de vento como este. Partes de um avião são expostas à vibração, levando asas, peças da cauda e turbinas a oscilar no mesmo ritmo. Quando o movimento de oscilação se torna muito forte devido à colisão do ar com a estrutura física, o resultado é quase sempre fatal. Mas antes da queda dos Electras, a Lockheed testou um modelo em um túnel de vento e declarou que a nave era segura. Aparentemente, porém, os engenheiros não levaram em conta todos os fatores que causam o flutter. O deslocamento da turbina do Electra sugeria que as hélices tiveram um papel importante no acidente. Para resolver o mistério, em 1959, a Lockheed recorreu à NASA, que havia acabado de construir um novo túnel de vento grande o bastante para testar um Electra.
They came here and said, basically, can you help us? Can you look at our analysis and see, are we doing it correctly? Are we getting the right answers? Are we doing it in the correct manner?
Durante os preparativos para o teste, um engenheiro da NASA indagou como uma hélice em movimento poderia contribuir para o flutter.
I went home in my kitchen and in a few nights built this rather simple model that allows pitching and yawing motions, and the stiffness could be changed by simply tightening the spring. And using this model and holding it outside of the car with my hand, we were able to determine some important features about propeller whirl flutter.
Um dos aspectos descoberto foi que quanto mais a turbina gira, maior a ação do flutter sobre as pás. Ao realizar os testes no novo túnel, a NASA percebeu que o giro da hélice era capaz de prover energia extra à estrutura, aumentando a ação do flutter e causando a oscilação nas asas. A teoria da agência espacial e da Lockheed foi de que os Electras haviam sofrido alguns pousos bruscos, causando um leve afrouxamento nas turbinas.
And as the propeller moves to one side, that is, as the engine mount flexes a little bit to one side, now the direction from which the airstream is coming is slightly changed. So when you see this happen, what you see is if you have a long, relatively thin engine mount like that on the Electra, the whole thing starts to do this peculiar whirling motion. It looks kind of like a top that's spinning that isn't quite, balanced.
A teoria foi sustentada pelos arranhões no revestimento das hélices, o que indica um desalinhamento de mais de 35 graus da turbina. O movimento causou um abalo de proporções inimagináveis nas estruturas das asas.
By incredible bad luck, the characteristic frequency of this whirling motion matched the frequency of the wing. Now, every part of an airplane is like a tuning fork. It has a natural frequency at which it'll vibrate. So even though the wing was by itself strong enough to withstand all of the foreseeable loads that it would encounter in flight, it could be broken by simply being shaken at just this special frequency.
A coincidência de frequências fez dois Electras literalmente sacudir até desmanchar. De posse dos dados colhidos no túnel de testes da NASA, a Lockheed reforçou os montantes da turbina e o problema foi resolvido. O Electra continua em serviço até hoje, como este P-3 Patrulha Marítima do Exército. Para estudar o olho de um furacão, a Direção Nacional Oceânica e Atmosférica utiliza Electras adaptados, mas o flutter ainda preocupa em viagens aéreas.
So this model here represents a typical commercial airliner wing. It has a mass and stiffness of what you would find in a model. And you can tell by when you push on the wing, it kind of shows how the stiffness and the mass and all the modes of the wing, the natural vibration modes, are all coupled together.
Os engenheiros ainda estudam o flutter. Mas devido à grande compreensão do assunto, atualmente é raro um avião cair por causa desse fenômeno.